Let's get across to Femi Gbajabiamila. He joins us now from Abuja. Morning, and thank you for joining us. He's actually the minority leader in the House of Representatives. Well, here, I mean, Mr. Weke just talked about the fact that it's not exactly a good idea to jack a budget proposal from $72 to $82 per barrel. As a matter of fact, he thinks that it comes across as though there's some sort of unnecessary altercation between the House of Representatives and the executive arm of government.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Chamberlain. I'm sorry I missed half of that segment, but from the little I understand, the issue of benchmark for me is, let's first of all understand one thing, whether for good or bad. The power of the purse belongs to the legislative arm of government, not to the executive. The question of the word executive itself is a derivative of from the word execute. They are to execute the laws, including the budget, which is a law, as laid down by the National Assembly. So it is a prerogative of the National Assembly to actually determine the benchmark. But let me talk about the benchmark for a minute. The benchmark for me is actually, setting a benchmark is actually against the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's been a practice, doesn't make it right. If you look at Section 80 of the Constitution, I believe, yes, Section 80, it talks about all revenues coming up, flowing into the country, must go into the Federation account. When you set a benchmark, that is, you're cutting off a good percentage of the revenue that comes into Nigeria, and rather than divert it into the Federation account to be shared, if you're really practicing federalism, what you're doing is you're siphoning a good portion of it for in whatever guise and for whatever name, whether call it savings, call it whatever you want, but you're shortchanging the states. You're shortchanging the states, and this is a matter that I think should be tested in court. There is no issue of benchmark as vis-a-vis the Constitution. If we determine or if we decide we want to benchmark and we want to save, that part of the Constitution needs, therefore, to be amended. But for now, as it stands, it is a matter that I brought up on the floor of the House a couple of weeks ago, and we will explore it and we'll pursue it, and hopefully that way we'll bring in more money for the states we represent. There is no issue of benchmark as far as I'm concerned.
For the avoidance of doubt, and for those who may not exactly understand it, because there may be so many shades of opinion and reports out there, what exactly is the position of the House of Reps about this proposal by the executive arm of government on the 2013 budget?
Well, the 2013 budget, we haven't seen it because it hasn't been presented. And the position of the House is very simple. You know, you don't jump from one to the other without taking care of the one that comes before. Again, it's very tardy to present a budget when there's a 2012 budget that is pending. We have always proposed an early presentation of the budget, but that early presentation must go hand in hand with execution of the previous budget. The medium-term expenditure framework, which was brought into the National Assembly, has not been passed. I want to understand that the budget of 2013 is predicated upon that medium-term expenditure framework. So it's taken a lot for granted, and it's being very presumptuous to present a budget that is predicated upon a medium-term expenditure framework that is meant to be passed by the National Assembly that has not been passed. So, I mean, we're for early presentation of budget so that we can have ample time to consider it and do a proper scrutiny. But it must be done in a tidy manner. And that is our position. And as soon as we pass that, the medium-term expenditure framework, as soon as we oversight and understand and see that the budget has been, the 2012 budget has actually been implemented faithfully to the letter, we do not believe that we should consider another 2013 budget and just be piling one upon the other. It's not very tidy, to say the least.
How soon are we talking about here? Next week?
or two, I mean, the president will probably will present his budget. And let me say this: if you look at the law, if you look at the Constitution, the president, if he wishes, actually can present his budget to both houses separately. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that it must be a joint sitting of the House. The section that talks about presentation of budget actually talks about presenting, that the president must ensure that he presents the budget to each house of the National Assembly. It doesn't say to both houses. So if he wants, and if the Senate accepts, he can present the budget to the Senate. And when we're good and ready, we will accept him laying the budget on the floor of the House as well.
All right, okay. Let's look at this benchmark for 2013, which is actually the crux of the matter this morning. Specifically, the House of Representatives said, well, they had decided to peg it at $82 per barrel. And the executive arm is saying that they are doing theirs in line with the fiscal rule, that is about the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007. They have decided to peg it at $75 per barrel. And if you say, well, there's nothing in the Constitution, or it is unconstitutional for us to talk about a benchmark, so how did the National Assembly come about its own figure?
Well, first of all, I'm not. We were advised by the committee. You know, we walk through committees. We were advised by the Committee on Appropriation and Finance, and they are seized with all the necessary information and data to arrive at that figure. But I want to believe that they looked at the current global price and decided that even if we were to save $82 was sufficient. The differential between 82 and whatever the current price of oil per barrel is was enough differential, you know, for whatever savings the government was looking at. Now let's understand one thing. We over time we set the benchmark as low as possible, and what happens at the end of the day? You hear the government saying they don't have enough revenue to finance the budget, and we have a deficit. How do you have a deficit? How do you don't have enough revenue to finance the budget when oil is selling at $100 and you set the benchmark at $60 or $70? What happened to the remainder 40? It goes into some excess crude accounts that the National Assembly has no inkling as to how it is spent. It is spent without appropriation. All you have is, you know, the president and governors sit down and they share that money on the excess crude account. In a very whimsical way. We don't understand how that lines up in the face of the constitutional provision that gives the National Assembly the powers of appropriation.